Hey everybody, any market news you want to talk about or tickers? I could do a DCF. Let me just set my file up. Okay. I just finished a video on MP Materials. It looks interesting, MP Materials. It doesn't really fit into my wheelhouse for investing. I like a little more stable. I generally like good companies that are well, at least I think they're a good value. I want companies to kind of prove themselves and then kind of grow and somewhat mature, but then get in during a pullback or a perceived pullback, because I really don't know when the low point is. But you can look at like any stock. I mean, even a company like Apple, because so many people say, oh, that you can't get rich from investing in a market anymore. It's not like it used to be. Like I remember in the early 2000s, say in 2010, 2014, 15, people would complain, oh, I should have invested in Apple in the 90s or 2002, 2003. So they think it's too late. But actually the biggest run up for Apple has been probably since 2020. From 2020 to 2025, I mean, it grew a ton. So everybody thinks they missed the boat, but that's a problem. Everybody's scared to jump in. They always think it's too late. So what's a good website? I just posted that article about the richest people in the world on my and Elon is still the richest. Elon is worth 400 billion. And if you look at Tesla and you look at ownership of Tesla, he's the largest owner of Tesla. He owns 13% of the company. But his valuation is 133 billion. It's not 400 billion. Because I remember when Bill Gates was the richest person in the world, and it was pretty much almost all his money, like 99% of his money was Microsoft stock. So if Elon is only worth 134 billion, only 134 billion, according to his Tesla holdings, where's the other 280 billion coming from? I mean, he does own other companies, but 280 billion is a big gap. Like, okay, Larry Ellison, let's compare. Oracle. He's the Oracle of Oracle. So Larry Ellison, he owns 40% of Oracle. Because Elon used to own like a lot of Tesla, like much more than 13%. I think he owned like 50-60% of Tesla at one point. But Larry Ellison owns 41% of Oracle, and it went up a lot the past couple of weeks. So his valuation is 229 billion, which is pretty much his net worth, right? That's where most of these people's net worth comes from, the companies they started. Let's look at Meta. Zuckerberg, I mean, Ellison really, he kept a lot of the company, 41%. Most of the time, the CEO or the person who started the company doesn't own that much, like 10% tops. Sometimes it's only like 5-6%, but he kept a lot of the company. So Zuckerberg, 13.5%. So he's worth 238 billion according to his Meta stock, which is almost identical to this Forbes list. And so you'll notice that with most of these people, the companies they run or started is where their net worth is pretty much tied to. They do. I'm sure they have to fill out some form for these companies like Forbes to figure this number out. So they probably list like how much their home is worth, because that's how you create your net worth. You'll put. I have an Excel sheet of my net worth, but maybe you have home value. Let me just make sure I didn't mess anything up. Let me just do this again because I don't want to mess up the spreadsheet. Let me create a new tab on this spreadsheet. I'll show you what I mean. There's more than one way to figure out your net worth. Okay. I would suggest that if you don't have a spreadsheet calculating your net worth, you should do it, because and I update it every couple of months. It's a good thing to track because you should know this for a number of reasons. So you'll list your assets. Okay, so say you'll say your home. This is just an example. Car 1, car 2. I don't even list my cars actually, but you got to figure out what's the value today. Like if you can sell it today, what can you get for it? And then you could say, your brokerage. And then you might have retirement. I have my assets. I have my expenses in addition to this to calculate my net worth. I have my expenses below it, so I calculate my monthly, which is not part of your net worth. So your retirement. So say that's 220,000. And you could have, your checking account, the money used on a day-to-day basis. So that changes every day. But whatever date you're doing this spreadsheet, you can look at it. So maybe you have 15,000 in there. When can you still pull T10? Yeah, we'll do T10 after this. I'm just showing people how to do their net worth. So that's your assets. Um, like I said, I don't put my car in there, but technically, I think a car probably could be part of it. You could put other things in. Um, I mean, if you have like a computer and TV, there is value there, but you're probably not going to sell it. I probably wouldn't put things like that on it. But if you do have something that's a real value, say you have a baseball card that is worth like $25,000, that I would probably put in there. Um, but I actually do have baseball cards. I don't list it in there, but you could. And liabilities. So your home mortgage, that's probably a liability. So even though your home is worth 300,000, say that's what you can sell in the open market. And if you want to be technical, you should probably lower it, because if you did sell for 300,000, you wouldn't get 300,000. You get like 270,000 because you pay fees. So maybe you have a mortgage tied to it that's, say you're at half of it, $150,000 mortgage, and say one of your cars you still owe on. So your car, um, I'm assuming you own the car. You're not leasing it. If you lease it, you wouldn't include it. Um, well, what do you owe on the car? Maybe on this first car, the $25,000 car, you still owe 15,000. So definitely put all the liabilities, and whatever day you're doing it, I would just as of that date. So I would look at my credit card statement, and I mean, I pay my credit card in full, so I wouldn't put anything. But if you don't pay it in full, if you have like 15,000 on credit card, I would just do the same thing, 15,000. I mean, what are other liabilities? I mean, whatever it is. Um, and it's good to keep track of this stuff. And you could do a snapshot each month and then save it in the file. And then you could see over the course of a year how your net worth moves. So in this example, this person's net worth is 730. It's like your balance sheet, really. Your net The balance sheet is similar to calculating your net worth, the value of the company at that point in time. So this person's net worth, let me get rid of the header so it's a car is an expense. Well, I mean, I guess so, but for calculating net worth, I mean, there's a lot of ways to do it. And like I said, I don't include my car, but technically a car is an asset. So the idea of calculating net worth is that if you liquidated all your assets today, how much can you get for it? Your home, you could definitely, that's an asset. If you own the home, a car is an asset, even though you probably wouldn't sell your car, but technically it is an asset. So there is value there. How much money you have in your brokerage account, your stocks, things like that, your checking account. I mean, I probably, if you have $200 in your wallet right now, I wouldn't include it, but technically that is part of your net worth. But there's a lot of ways to do it. So in this example, this person's net worth is 550,000. So if the bank wanted to provide you a loan, they may do this net worth calculation, and then they would also need to see how much money you make, your salary. But sometimes if you need to get a loan, the bank may say, we want your net worth excluding your home. So let me just Okay. So say you want a small business loan. Like if you wanted like a loan, a personal loan, they may use this net worth. But say you wanted a small business loan and they are a little more restrictive. And they say, we want to know your net worth, but you cannot include your home in the calculation. So you would just get rid of the home, and now your net worth went from 550 to 400. I mean, they could do whatever they want. They may say, we don't include the car. But if you owe money on the car, include that if you owe money. So now it's down to 355,000. A car is an expense. Well, I mean, a house is an expense too. I mean, what's not an expense? I guess if you own stock in a company, that's not an expense. You don't have to pay. But yeah. But one day I'll show you my net worth calculation. I guess I could show it to you. You already seen how much money I have in E-Trade and things like that. You just don't know how much money my home is worth. Like I have my home value like this. I have my mortgage. I have a business, so I kind of estimated how much the business is worth, and I did on the low end the estimate. So I think they do something similar with these people. There's probably like a little checklist that they send out, and they ask for them to fill in. So there's no like you can lie on this stuff. Like you can lie on these reports. The bank may ask proof. I mean, especially for your home, they may ask proof. I mean, the home is pretty easy because you just need that person's address, and then you can Google their address and see how much the home is worth. But in terms of the mortgage, they may ask for proof how much you owe, so you're not, lowballing that. But you could. I mean, I've just estimated this stuff too. I remember when I was trying to get a lease, a space in a shopping center for my business. They had a ton of things to add. I don't know what my car's worth. I just put just estimate a lot of things. Even my brokerage, I just try to what was it the last time I looked at it, and I just rounded it. But that's how you get credit. I mean, that's important. But going back to this, I thought it's interesting that Elon's 411 billion, and his Tesla stock is 134 billion, which is way different than 410 billion. And if you look at anybody else on this list, like Larry Ellison, Zuckerberg, Bezos, if you look at how much money they have in their companies, like how much Bezos has in Amazon stock, it's probably pretty close to 226 billion. I'll just show you. You see Bezos, he owns 8.5% of Amazon, 194 billion of Amazon. And he's 226. So that makes sense. I could see him owning another part of another company, or his homes. He has other things too. So that makes sense. Even Zuckerberg is right on target. His Meta stock is almost exactly 236 billion. But Elon, I mean, the bulk of his net worth is Tesla. These other companies he owns, these crappy, spaceship companies, they're not worth that much money. So I just thought that was interesting. So what companies does Elon Musk own? Predominantly Tesla. Okay. X, Twitter. Okay, Twitter. I didn't think about that. He also owns Twitter. but you see that he owns 10% of Twitter, which is nothing. I mean, 4 billion is like a rounding error. I mean, for 400 billion, that's like saying, like, if someone was trying to figure out your net worth, right? And say most of your money was in your retirement account, right? So you had 1 million in retirement, and that's pretty much it. Say, you have cash, 20,000 in cash in the bank account. You don't own your home. You rent. You lease your cars. So if somebody said, "Wait a minute, if you have 1 million in retirement, what about, what about your checking account?" And you said, "Okay, I have 20,000 in my checking account, so it's 1 million and 20,000." It's just a rounding error that doesn't even change anything. So Twitter, he's only worth 4 billion of Twitter, which is literally 1%. So I wouldn't even. It doesn't move the needle at all. So that's overinflated. That's all I'm saying. You don't think SpaceX is worth money? I'm not saying they're not worth money, but it's not going to do anything to. That's what I'm trying to say. Of course, it's worth money, but that's what I'm saying. Like, if you have $1 million in your retirement, right? And somebody says, "What's your net worth?" And you said it's $1 million because that's how much I have in retirement. And then somebody says, "What about your checking account? You don't think that's worth anything?" And I said, "Yeah, it's worth $20,000. So I have $1 million and $20,000. It's pretty much still $1 million, right? So it's just a rounding error. Because look, I'll show you. Maybe I'm wrong. Space. Wait, is it? What's the ticker, or is it trading? What's the name of his other company? Isn't there another name? How much is SpaceX worth? Oh, maybe I'm wrong. SpaceX next generation Starship. Could SpaceX be a $1 trillion company? But it's not traded. It's not publicly traded, right? Right, it's private. So okay, so I guess, yeah, you're right. I didn't think it was worth that much money. 350 billion, that's a lot of money. I was thinking it was worth a few billion. I guess I don't follow the news on SpaceX that much. And he probably owns quite a bit of SpaceX. How much does Elon own? Well, that answers my question. Okay, he owns 42%. So there it is, 147 billion of SpaceX. 147 plus 133. So it's still not. It's still off, but so let's just say 150 billion of SpaceX, and we know he owns 134. Let's just round it up to 140. But it depends when they wrote this article, because they might have estimated higher. So maybe it says 147 billion. Let's say it's 180. So that's So that's 320 billion. So I guess that answers it. It's SpaceX. Damn, I didn't think SpaceX would work that much. Revenue for SpaceX. Okay, 15 billion. SpaceX will record revenue 15 billion this year. The billion I sent on Tuesday, underscoring the rocket maker's growing dominance. Well, thanks for that information. I decided to rent instead of owning a house for now because rent control is very strong here. You actually have the right to rent reduction if mortgage rates fall. They say XAI is worth 100 billion. I own a museum in Austin. Should I consider it as part of my assets? Yeah, of course. I don't know. I mean, renting instead of buying, you will get both sides of the coin. But I mean, if you're gonna rent for like a long time, like a decade, you probably should have bought because all that rent payment could have went toward your mortgage. But if you rent and something happens, like you need to move, like I'm saying, if you own a house and then say you need to move, something happens, like you lose your job, you can't afford it, or maybe your spouse gets really sick and you need to just go back to where you grew up because she has family there and she needs support, whatever. So just you have to move for some reason. Yeah, it could be an expensive lesson. I lost about 50K on the condo I bought. And a condo, I mean, it only cost $150,000. I probably lost more than 50K. Damn, was it 150? I don't even remember what it was, but yeah, I lost quite a bit on my the first house I bought. It was a condo in Staten Island, and I mean, I could have, I didn't have to sell, but I was moving to California, and I just didn't want. It was already a headache because I lived in Manhattan, so I was renting it out. So it wasn't like I was far away. Manhattan and Staten Island are pretty close, so I could go to it. But it was such a headache dealing with things that go wrong. I just I didn't want to deal with that when I lived in California. Because if somebody's going to take advantage of you, it's best to do it when they don't live around you. It's easy to take advantage of somebody when they live far away. That's why if you run a business and you don't ever go to the business, you don't live close to it, employees may steal or things could go wrong. But so it's really, if you don't have the funds, then definitely rent. But I know it's easier said than done. What was the other thing? But I hate personally renting or leasing, like leasing a car. It kills me throwing away the money. But I wish I would have rented my first apartment instead of buying it because it would have saved me a ton of money. But the house I'm in now, and I bought a condo in Manhattan and Long Island. Those turn out to be good investments. So overall, I'm up. Dry wiping? Are you talking about when you go to the bathroom? That's the thing with houses is generally most people do well. Most people do well because usually people can stay in a place for a long period of time. You can stay in there 10 plus years, and it's a really nice feeling when you pay it off, and then you don't have to pay any rent to anybody. I mean, I live in California, so the taxes just to maintain a house is more money than renting. Like I mean, I can't rent where I live now. Like I wouldn't save money. But just to give you an example, what's it up to now? Yeah. Okay. So I'm talking about monthly. Uh, this is monthly taxes. What else do I have to? I mean, insurance isn't really that much. I mean, it's just taxes. I mean, of course, things go wrong. $25,000 for a new roof. But I would just, we don't pay HOA fees, so so and if we were to rent an apartment, my wife and I, we would probably spend like 3,500. We wouldn't rent the house like we live in. The house I live in, if I was to rent it, it'd probably be about 5,000, possibly 5,500. So I wouldn't rent a home like this to live in because we don't have kids. But we'd probably pay $3,500 a month if we were to rent a place in our county, in our town. So, but it's expensive, the taxes. But I wouldn't, if you're looking an apples to apples comparison, I mean, I wouldn't take into account all your expenses. Like, of course, we have to pay for cable, electricity, but you'd have to pay for that if you rented, right? So it's a wash either way. You got to pay for it. So what do you pay for that you don't get back? Insurance is pretty low, and I guess for maintenance, you do pay for maintenance things that you don't get back, like when we had a new fence put in, things like that. Why would anybody want to walk around with brown residuals lingering? You must be from Europe. Do the dry wipe? I personally like to shower. If I use the bathroom, number two, I like to use a shower. Of course, if I'm working, I can't really shower. But I mean, if you're wiping, I would hope you're cleaning it. You're pretty much cleaning it all there. You're not leaving stuff. That's pretty gross. But I should have joined your stream sometime to chat. Yeah, if you want to be on the stream and talk, I'm more than happy to have you join anybody. You get a bidet. Actually, I used a bidet once in Argentina. I didn't like it. I prefer to just shower after I use the bathroom. But yeah, if you own a business, I include my business in my net worth. It is hard to quantify because not many. It's just hard to, like, how do you know how much someone's willing to pay for your business? It's not that liquid of an asset unless you own a business like a Dunkin' Donuts or a business there's a bunch of them, and so you could kind of look what other businesses, other Dunkin' Donuts were selling for in similar neighborhoods. But if you own a business, probably if you own like a dry cleaner, that's probably pretty easy to quantify. But most businesses are pretty unique. If you own a florist in your town, I guess you could look at how much a florist would sell for in a similar town, but it's very illiquid. $11,000 for property taxes each year, $2,100 a month mortgage. $11,000 property taxes each year. The mortgage is $2,100. The thing is with the mortgage, so there's a few ways to. With the net worth, definitely include your business if you can. I would go a little lower, just to be safe. And of course, if you owe debt on your business. But there's a lot of ways to do. But this is a good exercise, and I do this a lot too. So rent. or buy? Okay. So some things are hard to like value, but I would kind of break it down as much as you could. Um, so if you were renting, you probably rent. So we're doing everything on a monthly basis to make things easier. So if you know it would be 2,200. That's pretty easy to quantify. So if you know it's 2,200, unless, I mean, you could try to like figure out, they charge you an extra tax if you pay off your mortgage. I'm not sure what you mean by that. You mean a prepayment penalty if you so when you do your mortgage, um I would just include the interest, because even though you're paying uh even though you're paying principal, you do get it back at some point when you sell the home or refinance it. Like if you pay an extra $1,000 a month towards your mortgage, it's not like it cost you $1,000 more to have a house. It's it's your option. You're paying that. It's optional on your part to pay the extra $1,000. So I would just do interest and not principal. I'm talking about in terms of comparing apples to apples. If it just was a cash flow analysis to see if you have enough money to buy a house, then you can well, you can do both and then strip out the so let's say, and it's going to change, but just to say the first year or two, it's roughly 700. It's a $2,200. Well, now that happens to be exactly what that is. Let's just say it happened. It's a $3,000 payment, 1,500 principal, 1,500 interest. That's what the bank tells you. I would probably exclude, like if you have to pay cable, $100 in cable in both. I mean, you could put it in both, but it's not going to make a difference because it's the same. But you can the fuck. You know, PG&E, like gas, electricity, say it's 150. So when you rent, like if there's an HOA fee, if you live in a community where you have to pay an HOA fee, if you rent, you don't have to pay that. The person who owns it pays it. I mean, they may raise your rent to compensate for that, but it's already part of your rent. So say the HOA fee is $500 a month. Rates are very low here. The thing is, when rates are low, the price of homes goes up. When rates start going up, then the home values start going down. So it's not like you're saving money by waiting for rates to go down. The way you make a lot of money is that you buy a home when rates are at their highest. So say you have $1 million mortgage and it's 9%. And then 3 years later, rates are down to 6%, and you still have $1 million mortgage. You're just paying interest. So now you refinance, and the best time to buy is actually when rates are the highest, because you can refinance and get a lower rate. When rates are the lowest, you can't refinance because you'd be paying a higher rate. You wouldn't. It doesn't make sense to refinance. So yeah, so I would just do a side-by-side comparison to give you a sense of taxes, 1,100. What else would it be? I don't know. So if you look at this, to buy, it's a lot more money. It's nearly double. It's $2,400 more to buy it per month. But if you look at it, that $1,500 principal, just because you're paying it each month, doesn't mean it's not a waste of money. The $2,200 of rent is a waste of money. You're not getting that back, no matter what. But the principal you will get back, because it does lower the mortgage, regardless of how much you sell it for. Whether you sell it for a big gain or a big loss, your mortgage is going to be each month $1,500 less. So I would strip out the $1,500 because you're getting it back. You need the cash flow, of course. If you can't afford it, then you wouldn't do it. So in this example, it costs you $900 more to buy a home than rent a home each month. So it's more expensive, but who knows where prices will go? Like, what if when you bought the home, like say the home is worth like $300,000 when you buy it. Okay. So when you purchase, it's $300,000. You just got to estimate these types of things, but so say each year you're losing $10,800 every year by buying it instead of renting it. If you rented it, you could have saved $11,000 for the year. So in 10 years, say you rent it for 10 years versus buying it. So if you rent it for 10 years, you saved $130,000. So $108,000 by renting instead of buying. Now you have to assume, you don't know, like, it's possible the person you're renting it from, or even the entire rental market, just jacks up rents. So right now it costs you $900, but what if next month your landlord raised your rent from $2,200 to $3,200? You'd have been better off buying it, because you would save $100 by buying it, because the amount you have to pay, even though it's $1,400 more, you pay that $1,500 in principal, so you'd be better off buying it. But you don't know that. You just have to use the number you have. Hey, Alex, what's up? So everything's kind of a back of the envelope analysis, because nobody can predict the future. So let's just use these numbers because this is what we have and this is what we think it's going to be. By renting, we save $11,000 a year. So if we rented for 10 years, like my mother has rented the same apartment for nearly 30 years. I wish I would have bought it and she could have rented from me, but that's a different story. So for 10 years, you rented an apartment instead of buying. That was your thought process. I'm going to rent. I save money. So this is how much money you saved. Okay. And the purchase price, this is the value of the home if you did buy it in 2025 is $300K. What's the value in 2035? You know, nobody really knows, but let's just say you really think the value is going to be 400,000. It's going to go up 30%, right? So you would have profited 100K from owning the home. So if you looked at this analysis, it doesn't matter what you do, whether you buy or rent, because if you rented it, you would save $108,000 in expenses. But if you bought it, you would have got $100,000 back by selling it after 10 years. So it actually doesn't matter what you do in this situation, whether you rent or buy. Of course, we don't know the future. And then if you found out the home, if you were able to predict the future, the home would double. And then you definitely want to buy it because you would be making a $300,000 profit on a home, even though you spend $100,000 more on expenses to maintain it. You definitely want to buy it. But no one knows the future. But that's all you can do, right? You can just kind of do this analysis and get an idea. But even if you did know the future, you're psychic, right? You know the future. This house will double. Just because you know that doesn't mean you could still buy it. You need the money. You need to put like $60,000 down, a 20% down payment, and you need to be able to maintain the home for a decade. If you can't do that, you can't do that. Not everybody has like a mother that can give them money or a relative. Some people don't have that or don't even want that. I came here in 2018 and we had negative interest rates for a while. Yeah. Are you in Japan? Because Japan has negative interest for like 15 years now. Negative interest. So what that means theoretically is that you pay the bank to hold your money. So say you put $10,000 into the bank. When there's negative interest rates, say it's a negative 1%. So you pay the bank $100 for the ability to keep your money in the bank. So you give them $10,000 and then you give them another $100 on top of that as a fee for them taking your money. It's not in America, everywhere else, they pay you an interest rate. So say you put $10,000 into the bank, that means the bank pays you $200 throughout the year. That's the interest they're paying you for letting them keep your money. Because what do they do with your money? They loan it to someone else at like a higher rate. They give that money to your neighbor and charge them 8% on a personal loan, so your neighbor can pay off their credit cards. And the bank makes a $600. That's their spread. The interest rate spread is 6%. That's how banks make money. But in a negative interest rate environment, you have to pay. You don't actually have to pay, but it's kind of like it's the same thing when remember when spot rates for oil was negative? Like oil was so low it became negative in in it was April 2020 because it was 1 month after COVID hit. So because generally um when a company produces oil, they have to um like pay a company, a midstream company, to transport the oil or to hold the oil until it gets to the next like like a Shell would have to pay a midstream company an Energy Transfer to ship the oil by vessel or pipeline to the downstream company. But it would be the opposite, where the midstream company, instead of getting a fee, they'd have to pay someone. Uh, they didn't actually do that, but it's just all derivatives make it negative. So it was a funny time. What say you are defraud of a house? Why is everything so hard? What do you mean defraud a house? I mean, you could break things down in like simple terms and in theoretical terms, but yeah, like I said, the main issue with people not buying homes, the number one reason is a down payment. People just don't have even a $300,000 home, which doesn't sound like a lot. You still have to come up with $60,000. And if you don't come up with $60,000, you'd have to find another bank or a loan shark to give you the money to pay them a higher interest rate. Or I guess you'd have to take what is it, PMI, private mortgage insurance. So you'd have to get a PMI loan and pay an extra like couple $100 a month. But we try to make homes more accessible by and just we try to make homes more accessible. So that's why they were lowering the upfront amount. Like banks were trying to find ways to like offer homes instead of a 20% down payment, a 10% down payment, and then it got to a 0% down payment. So you don't have to put any money down. And then the crash came, the Great Recession in 2008, because people were getting homes and not able to pay for the homes, and the defaults ran rampant. What were home default rates historically? What were I want to see a longer time frame. Do they have like back in the 50s? I guess they don't have this data. Okay, let's look at this. Mortgage delinquencies. So this is good if you want to get more into like microeconomics instead of macro. We look at things on a high level. It's much more easy to understand. But if you want to get really detailed, these are things to look at to figure out, are we going to go into recession? Are things how are rates going to move? Prices. So you can see home default rates in 2000 were 2%. It probably should be in a range of like 1 to 4%. Once it gets outside that range, there's major problems, because you don't want it too low default rates. When default rates, I'm sure if you go back, I don't think they have the data. If you go back to like 1950, default rates were probably close to zero because they did not give loans to people who couldn't afford. Like you couldn't get a home unless you had made good money, and it wasn't so freaking expensive. Like today, it's just so expensive to buy a home. Like I'm just giving you an example. We could look it up, but like probably if you look at 1950, the like yeah, if you look at like salary, like the average salary, say in 1950 was like, I'm just making up numbers, but that was the average salary. And then average home was like $85,000. So what percent of salary is the home? So that means roughly 18% of your annual salary is the cost of a home. And so it's affordable, right? Back in 1950. And then if you look forward to today, I don't know these numbers by heart, but I'm just going to guess at it. Average salary, say, went up to 56,000, so a little more than tripled. But home prices didn't triple; they went up like 800%. So home prices are up to like $600,000. So the average annual salary could only pay for 9% of a home. So it costs take you 11 years to pay for a home. And of course, you don't get $56,000. You have to pay taxes, then you have to pay for like food, whatever. So you can't pay your entire salary towards your home. So you would never pay off the home based on for your salary. Nobody could afford it. Well, you need two people working in order to afford a home. You need a dual salary. Where in the 50s, you can have a man working full time, have two kids, the wife at home, and afford a nice house. You can't do that in 2025. It's just the rate. That's why homes were such a good investment, because it's gone up so much, well past the growth in salaries. But this is where the problem is. Rate defaults got up to 11%, and they did bring it down. Most people that complain about home prices just want to live in the top 15% of locations. That's probably true, because that's what you have to do. If I can't afford to live in my particular neighborhood, because the average home where I live, it's so expensive, but the average home is like $1 million. I just have to drop. I work in this neighborhood, but I can't afford to live in here. So I just have to drive 30 minutes north, and the average home comes down to $600,000. That's what you have to do. You have to go further away, or you just have to live in a small place, or you have to rent. That's just the way it is. Oftentimes, there are a lot of neighborhoods, especially if you work in Manhattan. Like most people cannot afford to buy a home in Manhattan. Maybe they can afford a studio, but if they have kids, there's no way they can afford a place to live. That's enough room for you, your spouse, and your kids. Yeah, so you just have to leave. So these are why. So once it gets to these levels, big problems, and that's when the Great Recession hit. So there is a way to track, to understand the market, but this is just one thing. This is a big thing, though. But this is interesting. So So if you I mean, of course, well after the fact, but you could have looked at mortgage rates in 2007, 8, 9 before it peaked. Like if I was doing this channel back in 2007, 8, 9, we might have been talking about this exact topic. Let me show you spiders. Okay. What's the time frame? 2000, 2022. I wish you can pick the time frame. You can't pick it. You could on Yahoo Finance. They should. Most people complain about things, which is annoying. 2000. Is it 2022? Yes. Why? Okay. So I'm going to show you like the S&P 500. We could see if there's correlation. Come on. Let's see the correlation between mortgage default rates and the S&P 500. You can't really tell because the market has blown up. So you can see default rates were pretty steady. They did get low in 2004, 2005. So the market did come down a little bit those years. I mean, it came down a lot further in 2001. We know why, which had nothing to do with mortgages. It was dot-com crash. Then when mortgage rates peaked in 2009, that's pretty much the peak of the Great Recession. And so it should be the opposite, right? The higher the default rates, the lower the market. And the lower the default rates, the higher the market. It's just the market took off recently. But it's this point right here. So if you saw this coming, say in 2007, you could have got out of the market, or you could have shorted the market. But but it's hard to know because you'd have to wait 2-3 years. I mean, I guess 2009 was the ultimate peak in default rates, which is pretty close to the bottoming out of the market. And then you could have bought back in when default rates peaked. But during this time, when the world was collapsing, when people like the world's ending, this is going to be worse than the Great Depression, nobody wanted to buy into the market. They thought, it's never going to come back. The market's never going to recover. Of course, it always recovers. And then it just shut up. do you publish the link to join your stream? No. I mean, I could do it right now if you want to join. You don't even need to like talk about anything. If you want to join, yeah, you definitely join, and you can just listen or ask questions. You don't have to even provide much feedback. So the biggest part of someone's net worth of individuals, the number one is their home. Anybody that has a significant net worth, I'd say over $100,000 up to like 2 million. Their home is a huge part. If your net worth is $20,000, you probably don't have much to your name. You rent, you pay your bills, you don't own anything. But if your net worth is in this range, 100K to 2 million, the main culprit is your home. So that's how a lot of people became millionaires, is because of their home. But they don't have any money. They have like 50,000 in the bank. They don't have $1 million in the bank, but their home is worth, $1 million, and they may still owe 200,000-300,000 on it. But that's a huge factor, is if these middle income people whose net worth is between 100K and 2 million, if 10% of them are defaulting, that's going to really drag down the economy, because it kills their net worth. But it also, the default hurts the bank, because now the bank doesn't have the funds to pay their investors, and it's a whole trickle down effect. Once you get above 2 million, if you're like a 15 million net worth person, it's not your home. You have probably a business, and you have a lot in your retirement account. But if you're like around a 1 million range, even 500,000, it's mostly your home is doing the heavy lifting. But it's an interesting topic. I'll be right back. Use the bathroom. Yeah, but let me know. Is there any tickers we should take a look at? You guys think? Do you publish the link to your channel? Most people a lot of people complain. It's so annoying. Like, so many people complain about Elon Musk. Like, I'll ask someone, like, do you like Elon Musk? Oh, I hate him. I hate him so much. And I say, why? And they never have a good reason. Usually they'll say, oh, because he's a racist. I don't know. I mean, did you think he was a racist last year? I don't think he was doing a Hitler salute. I don't think that was his goal. It's so stupid. It's never anything that makes sense. I said, well, besides being a racist, he doesn't share his money, or it's just there's never any good reason. It's just because I mean, I'm not saying I love the guy, but I have no. So at Tesla, there's 125,000 employees. That's how I think the best thing you can do as an individual is to provide employment. You don't realize how important that is. If you don't live in the United States, you really so 125,000 people are employed because of him. And I think if you start a small business and you employ 4 people, I think you're doing a great thing, because you took that risk. Of course, you're doing it for a profit. Who wants to risk money to lose money? You risk money to make more money. No matter how many jobs you provide, even if it's one job, I think you're really helping society. So he created a company, of course, to make money, and now he employed 125,000 people. So now all those people are able to provide for themselves and provide for their families and pay their mortgage and eat and live like a real human being, not stressed out all the time about not having money. So and then these people complain. I'm like, so what did you do? Like just if you didn't help anybody get a job, I'm not saying you're a bad person, but what are you doing? How are you helping society? A lot of if you work, that's good. You are helping society. You're helping a company. Even if you're a cashier at a supermarket, you're helping that company provide to their customers and make a profit. You're doing something for society. And is on a tear. Oracle. Now, I've been thinking about Oracle for a while, and it's so easy to look at it now and say, oh yeah, I should put all my money in Oracle. But it was hard for they were similar to Intel. Like, they really peaked in 2000 before the dot-com crash, but they were a much more stable company than the average dot-com. So they peaked at 40, low 40s in 2000, right before the crash. So for 15 years, they didn't do anything. It took them 15 years to go all the way down 80% in value to kind of back to where they were originally, 2015. And even in 2021, Shadow Guy.
Oh, I'm here.
What do you look like? I can't even tell.
I'm here. My video. You can hear me, right?
I could see you and hear you. Okay.
According to
Welcome.
this, I've never done this before. Never ever. I mean, I've been. You know what's funny is you said that that people are often shy, and I guess I'm that way. But I realize because I'm one of Victor's members, maybe his first one. I'm recorded on YouTube. Like, you get to a point, right? As I'm in my 40s now, it's like, okay, come on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm shy too, and every stream I'm uncomfortable.
So,
But I do it. I do it.
so
I don't sit in my house all day in fear of talking to people. You have to
yeah,
live your life.
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, and the best way to do it is to put yourself in situations that are not comfortable. That's the best way to kind of move
And
forward. So
breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, or maybe it's the other way
exactly.
around. I forget, but I think. But full disclosure, so Victor, I am not. I got a little bit of liquid courage too. So, but it's actually really hot here. It's really hot here, so I made myself a drink when I got home. So
Yeah, I'm getting hot too. It's what part of the U.S. are you in?
none. I'm not.
Oh,
So
what country?
I live in Switzerland, but as you might tell, I am not from Switzerland. I am actually from California.
Okay,
So I did what a lot of Californians have done and left, but I did something. So the first thing to know about me is first of all, I might be crazy. That's certainly possible, but I just went farther than most. I was like, Texas, New York, no, let's go a little farther. But I just took a job. I mean, I just got a job offer. I was in the same field I worked in. And I was like, living in Europe sounds interesting. I literally studied German in college, not German and physics, actually.
right.
But I was like, well, what the heck? I was at a point in my life where I needed a change. I mean, I kind of blew up a couple things, but for me personally, again, I can only speak for me personally, it was the right decision.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
But that's why, if you see, I have kind of an odd point of view. That's why.
Everybody's weird in their own way, and a lot of people just wouldn't do it. A lot of people talk about these things like they're like, I want to live in another country, but they just talk about it. Oh, I want to buy a home, or I want to start a business, and they never do it. But by doing it, it's not like the world ends if something bad happens. If something bad happens, like say you can't find employment, or say whatever, you can move back.
Yeah.
But you adapt, you figure things out. And that's the only way to grow in life, is to kind of do things.
Well, to give you just a very, the 5-second summary, right? The first page summary in my life. This is not the first time I lived abroad. I actually worked in Chile. If you know, you said you've been to Argentina. So
yeah, I went to Chile for a few days.
Yeah. I was working in an observatory there. And I guess the point was, I got in my head, I came back to California, but I kept thinking, I want to live outside the US. I want to live outside the US. I want to live outside the US. And now I speak 3, actually going on 4 languages. Wow. And every time I go back, so the immigration agents come back and they come and welcome home. I'm like, okay, if you say so. Because honestly, when I come back to California, visit my family and stuff, it's like, I know where my home is. For me, again, it's like I've been here 7 years now, and actually, I'm about to get permanent residence here. Isn't that crazy? 7.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But anyway, I just wanted to tell you that. So the things work different here when it comes to real estate. That's why if I was in the U.S., I absolutely would want to own. But things work, and I thought about it. Some people own here. I have a friend who does. But and I may, but only number one in the right circumstance, the right deal, because so basically it's California prices here, but except it's the whole country, not the whole country, but mostly.
Yeah.
And the other thing is it's much more restrictive on what you can buy here. Now, because I'm about to get permanent residence, that will change things. I basically will have the same rights as a Swiss person. It's like having a green card. It's
right. Yeah.
A green card. So.
Yeah, but that a lot of countries are like that. Like if you want to buy a home, I remember when I visited Mexico, we couldn't buy a home because we didn't live there. Our friends could buy it. We were thinking about doing an investment. So U.S. is not like that. We'll take anybody's money.
Well, for now, that could change. That everything can change, So, what, if I may ask, what part of California are you in? Because I'm from the Bay Area, the San Jose area.
Yeah, I'm north in San Francisco. Yeah.
Okay, Cool.
Yeah. So it's real expensive place to own a home. You almost have to be in the top 5% to really afford it. It's expensive and taxes are high. A lot of people leaving California. I would love to live in another country like you. I don't think my wife would. So
Yeah.
I don't have.
I
nothing-
came single. In fact, well, long story short, I'm friends with her now. It worked out as friends, luckily, I guess. But I was in a relationship when I left. We ended the
Oh, really?
relationship, right? So, but that's life. That's. I made a choice. I was like, and she agreed with me. I was like, I want to live in Europe. I've wanted to live in Europe like since college. And she was like, yeah, I mean, you should probably go. Like it's, I'm not going to keep you here. It is what it is. But honestly, for me, what's that?
She didn't want to. She's visited you, right? Though
She did visit me, but the thing is, so she didn't have. Okay, I can tell you more of the story if we ever have like a private conversation. But
yeah,
let's just say that. So you can't just, as you know, right? You said you've looked into stuff abroad. So like the EU. Well, actually, Switzerland's not in the EU. So I don't know if you knew that, but we're not. This is another story. But
right, yeah,
like
they're
as
not
an American, except maybe for Canada and Mexico to some degree, you can't just go there and say, "Hey, I want to live here and work." No, so I end up, I had a very specific. I mean, to quote that movie, right? I had a very specific set of skills, but basically, I work in a field that is pretty niche. I work in control systems for accelerators. And it turned out I was working at the accelerator at Stanford, and they were building one very similar here in Switzerland. And not the one you're probably thinking of. I'm in the German part. I'm not in CERN. And I just applied, and they actually had to first of all prove they couldn't find someone in Switzerland. Then they had to prove they couldn't find someone in the EU. And then they could hire me. So my ex, I have a college degree, right? She didn't. And I think she still does not. So the only way she could have come here would be if we'd gotten married. And even then, she would have had to go through learning the language and all the stuff you would have to do. And I'm used to so I'm an only child. And for me, I'm used to being on my own. She's not, right? And like, I feel bad saying this, or probably I feel bad even talking about her, right? Because it's like,
right.
You know how it is, but
we'll never know.
But anyway, that's anyway, that was 7 years ago, right? So life goes on.
Yeah, no, I did know Switzerland was not in the EU because they're still on their currency. That's how I know.
But no, that's not the only way. No, there are EU countries that have their
I
own
do know
currency.
that.
Poland.
I do know that.
Czech
That's
Republic.
one signal. But you're right. Not every EU country is on the euro.
Well, here's one way to know that we're not in the EU. Well, one is that there are actually border checks sometimes. I've even got a border check because I have a dentist. My dentist is in Germany. And they literally, actually it was on the Swiss side. They checked me leaving the country by car. But anyway, that's another thing. I would say the thing that stands out as an investor. So if I were in Germany and I have a friend who's American living in Germany, if you're in the EU, you cannot, and you're American citizen, actually, you're kind of hosed. You can pick individual stocks, but you basically cannot, or it's very, very difficult to get ETFs. You cannot get US ETFs because it has to do with the EU. You could theoretically buy the EU approved ETFs, but the IRS will make your life hell. It's something called PFIC. I don't know if you know that. So anyway, all I'm getting at here, Scott.
What was the last thing you said?
PFIC, Passive Foreign Investment Corporation. So, so let me put it this way. I stopped doing my taxes recently. Now, I was doing my taxes my American taxes for a while. Let's see, my situation got more complicated in the past couple of years. I had inheritance and there's some other stuff going on, but yeah. So when you are a U.S. citizen and you live abroad, especially as long as I have, I would say I'm halfway to being an advisor. Like maybe like you're looking into being a tax specialist. Like I could, I don't have a certification, but like unofficially,
Right.
I know a lot about the tax code already.
I'm sure.
Like I
I'm
talked to
sure.
the tax professional and I'll tell her things. Like I know, did you know the IRS keeps a website with the average exchange rates for many different currencies? And my tax advisor didn't know that. And because she was talking about, because I had to give her my Swiss income statement, right? And she was asking about
Right.
the exchange rate. And I was like, well, there's an IRS website. You didn't know that?
Wow, that's funny.
Yeah. So
You'd think they know that. Trying to find a list of non-EU, but nothing's in list form.
well, Switzerland is a very special situation. And it's not like the UK where they left. The Switzerland just never joined.
They never joined. Right.
Nope. Now, actually, there's a little bit of a funny story. The government wanted to, and you know the reason the UK left was because of a referendum, but Switzerland also was because of a referendum. The thing is, Switzerland has referendums all the time. The direct democracy trumps everything here, right? So, like even the Supreme Court. Like,
What do you
so
mean
let's say
Trump?
the
Trump's
Supreme
not part of
Court.
the EU.
What's that?
You said Trump. He's not part of the EU.
Did I say Trump? Did I don't. Oh, all I was
I'm
going to say
joking.
was. Oh,
You said
okay.
Trump's everything. I was just joking.
Oh, ha ha ha. Well, I was
I was
actually
trying
going to get to that. I was going to say, so let's imagine
Yeah.
that the federal council, so that's the government here is very unique, right? So there's only a symbolic president. The executive is actually a council of 7 members. That's the function of the president. But anyway, so let's say that the government here put tariffs on, and people here said, no, we don't like that. And or Supreme Court, whatever, the Supreme Court upheld it. We could say, okay, we're going to fire all of you. We're going to have a referendum. In the referendum, we will fire the entire Supreme Court and fire the Executive Council and replace you and cancel the tariffs. And they would have to oblige. At least that's the system here. So, but this is one of the reasons why they didn't join the EU, because direct democracy. They were afraid of losing their sovereignty. But actually, so here's what happened. What I'm getting at, early 90s, you can look it up. The government wanted to join the EU, right? The federal council, the parliament, all that wanted to join the EU. There was a referendum. The referendum rejected it resoundingly, like 70%. So the government said, well, crap, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of countries, they don't want to. Yeah, you feel you would lose something. It's kind of like anytime a country tries to break away. Like when we try to break away from the UK to become our own country, you know, we would gain a lot, but we'd also lose a lot. So, but yeah, there's some pretty big countries that are not part of the EU. I'm just like Norway, your country, UK is. Those are probably the biggest.
Well, technically, I have more than one country, you could say. I am American, but yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, you
have
probably American.
Let's say I'm in transit. I could be in transition. I don't know. I definitely.
You're transitioning.
I'm kind of a global citizen. I mean, that's kind of how I've seen myself for a while, anyway. You know, I'm just a person, man. I'm just a person living my life, you know, trying to contribute to society. That's it.
Like all of us, right?
Right.
But that's cool. You took the risk and you did it, and it's worked out, which is great. Switzerland's probably a nice country, probably a lot less stressed than the U.S.
Yeah. Yes and no. So it's So I might get in trouble here, but so let's say it's not the U.S., right? It's definitely not. But if I'm going to, and this is why I'm glad I haven't had that much to drink. Um, the way I would put it, compared to Western Europe, compared to France, Germany, even the UK, right? Spain, certainly, Portugal, certainly, Italy. It's closer. It has more in common with the US. I would put it that way. Because let's say, for example, right? Patriotism,
Mhm.
guns. I could actually buy a gun probably now. When I get permanent residence, I certainly could. I don't know if I will, but I could. I'm just saying that I could, right?
Right. It's easier.
Independent. They're very independent and stubborn. They do what they want. Not in NATO, right? What else? Lower taxes, for one thing, right? There's probably more that I just can't think of right now, but those are that's kind of the main stuff I'm thinking of, right? Oh, and labor protections are not as much, like it's certainly different than like France or Germany, right? And private health insurance.
Oh
It's
yeah,
now the
that's
way
big.
I would describe it in one sentence, because I've thought about this a lot and talked to people. So imagine if Obamacare was completed, like to the extent, the fullest extent, and they could implement the entire system, hypothetically. That's basically pretty close to what Switzerland is. So it's universal. You have to join, but there is no Medicare, there's no Medi-Cal. It's all one system. It's all private, and you get subsidized if you need it. So, like, I have a friend who's subsidized. It's fine. So, but that's
Yeah, because there's
oh,
universal
wait,
healthcare.
Scott. By the way, this is
Yeah.
also super important. It's separate from your employment. Like, I have a friend here, right? I have a friend who's very gung ho American, and that's fine, right? Like, but he was talking about how he had such great health insurance. He's like, well, you in Europe. I'm like, no, actually, I have great health insurance too. And if I leave, but I keep it if I leave my employer. So I don't see your point. Sorry. But so I have the reason why I don't vote in the U.S. anymore, and I'm independent now, is I want the U.S. to be more like Switzerland, which no party wants. So, so I give up.
Wow. So it sounds like you're there to stay.
For the moment. For the moment, in the near future, it's working out. So.
And your family probably wants you to come back.
Yes and no. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. So they're okay. Well, you're an only child, so I thought it would be a little painful for your parents.
I'll tell you the story another time. But let's
Yeah,
see. So my mom. Well, I'll tell you this. My mom does not want to speak German. Hates the idea. But she does speak French. She loves French culture. And another fun fact about Switzerland. Let me send you this. Swiss. So actually, you know a bit about things. How many official languages are there in Switzerland?
in Switzerland?
Yes. Can you just give me a guess?
I would just say
it's more than one, right?
Five. I would say 5.
Oh, that's close. That's close, actually. Official. I think I can put this in the private chat. Can you see the map I just?
Yeah, I can see the map.
So this is the language regions.
So German is a bulk of
Yes.
it. That's the orange. You have French on the western part, Italian
Mm-hmm.
in this one little spot, and I guess the smallest is, what is that?
That is Romansh. You can just call it Romansh. So that is
Romani?
No, Romansh. It's not Romani, Romansh. So Switzerland has 4 official languages. German is definitely the majority, but I'd say about roughly 60% German speaking. a quarter to a third French, and then maybe 5-10% Italian, and then the rest is Rhaeto-Romansh. But Romansh is really, they just call it Romansh, which is
Right.
like Italian kind of. It's a Romance language. It's related to Latin, right, and Italian. But so I guess that by itself, I would say kills the. Anytime someone says you have to have one language in a country, they have to have everyone speaking one language, I say no. That's just factually wrong. But
Well, and almost every country, especially in the U.S., there's 100 languages being spoken. But if only 6 people speak a certain language, they're not going to hit this map. But yeah, if you go to New York City, I could hear a dozen different languages.
yep.
But yeah,
Well, it's a little bit of a touchy subject here because it's by region, right? So it's not like they all speak each other's language. Here they hate speaking French. They hate speaking French for the most part. There's a few that do, but like I could learn it, but like I spent so much time learning German. By the way, Swiss German is different. This is a whole other thing that I really don't want to get into right now, but let's suffice it to say, if you study German in school, Swiss German is, as it's spoken, is very different. It's almost like a different language. So, anyway.
yeah, I can imagine.
It's a fascinating country. It's a fascinating country. I don't think the U.S. should do everything that Switzerland does. So, like one example is every canton, which is like a state, every state of Switzerland has its own immigration office. Meaning, so when I applied for a job here, first I had to get approved by the federal government, right? Yes, but then the canton. So I'm in Aargau. Aargau is in the north, bordering Germany. Aargau had to approve me too. So what happens if the federal government approves you and the canton doesn't? You can't come. Or you have to apply in a different canton. In fact, even as a foreigner here, I have to apply to move. Like even Canton Zurich, like if I want to live in Zurich, I would technically have to apply there. Now, probably they'd approve me because I speak German and I'm close, blah, 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 yada, yada. But let's say that I want to do something else. Let's say I want to move to Geneva. It's in Switzerland. You would think, well, it's the same country, right? It's Switzerland. And they would say, okay, first of all, your job is across the country. Second of all, you don't speak French. Why should we allow you to move here? Right. I don't live there anymore. So honestly, I can't say it, but I'm not sure we want the US doing that. Just my opinion.
So. Yeah, no, some countries won't deviate. Like we're not going to be on a metric system. It's just not going to happen. We're not going to change all the books for the past 200 something years. So,
well, wait a minute. Everyone else did, but all the other countries did.
I know. We're stuck in our ways, and it's just not going to happen.
Well, there you go. There you go, Scott. I studied physics, so I'm like, I just wanted to use metric every day. So.
Right. I wish we would get all on the same page with things. I wish, we all had the same currency, so we don't have to deal with these headaches. I wish. I just pretty much wish everybody adapted to the U.S. so everybody spoke English, so we don't have to change anything. But that's I'm kind of joking, but that's how Americans feel about it.
No, not just Americans. No, Scott, it's not just Americans. It's every English speaker. It's you. Believe me, English people, Australians. You meet. I don't know if you know many Australians. I don't want to stereotype, right? I don't. But let's say a lot of Australian people are like, why should I? And English people are like, yeah, maybe I should learn another language, but they'll speak English.
Exactly. It's funny because if you're in America and somebody speaks another language to you, it's annoying. We're like, just speak English. But if the opposite happens, like if I go to another country, or even if somebody's speaking Chinese in America and I try to speak Chinese, they're so happy that I'm even trying. Like other countries are very happy you're even trying, but in America we get annoyed if you don't speak our language. we don't like to adapt.
Uh,
Um,
well, Switzerland is kind of in between. It's definitely there's a lot of people here who have similar attitudes to what you're talking about. Let's say. In
right.
fact,
Yeah.
the fact that you've met the people who really are, let's say, nationalistic, when if they can tell you're clearly foreign and and you're not speaking very confidently, and they just start speaking Swiss German to you, like completely, like they don't care. Now, for me
Yeah.
personally, I can handle it for the most part. I'm fine with it, but certainly when I first came here, I had no idea what they were saying. So, but anyway, I will. Here's a hot take. The world would be much better if everyone, including the U.S., as an American, could at least speak one other language, at least bilingual. So
I
that's
think
my hot
so.
take.
I agree, and I wish I knew more languages, but it's hard to learn when you get older. It seems to learn new
And
things.
I disagree. Immersion is the key. I used to think that. No, Scott, this is why I
Immersion
went
is
to
the key.
Chile.
Yeah.
Well, this is why I went to Chile, because I was in my mid 20s, and I was like, this is it. I'm either I do it now and I became bilingual. I became bilingual there, right? Because I had to. Um, but once you learn a second language, it does get easier on a third, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But actually, the term is neuroplasticity. Now, I've also heard that I have something of an ability. I don't know if that's true. I would say I'm interested, but the research on this is, and until maybe you get Alzheimer's or something, you're quite old. But let's say up to you're like
Yeah.
80, you would be surprised with how adaptive the brain can be. And like so, what people say, the difference between, like, people say kids can learn a language very quickly compared to adults, but that's just because they are immersed in it, right? They're around
It
other
is
kids.
true.
Now,
Yeah.
if you quit everything and you were put in the same environment with as a, well, I'm saying, let's say you were put in an environment similar to that of a kid, in that you're around people who are talking 5 different languages with you, right?
Hmm.
You would learn probably just as quickly, as long as you keep your mind open, right?
It's
That's when
true.
it comes to
Yep.
attitude. So anyway, thanks for listening to me jibber jabber for all this time. I didn't
Um,
even talk about the main thing I wanted to bring up, which is I was going to tell you about the real estate thing here.
all right. So so you have to live there to buy a home.
Well,
Is that part of it?
yes, that's part of it. And actually, so I'm about to become a permanent resident, so I will have free ability. But one thing is, so let's say you come here as a B permit or ELP. Well, anyway, let's say you come here as like a normal work permit, as I have now. I can buy the place I'm in now. I'm in like a condo that someone else is renting me. I could buy this place, but I cannot buy, let's say I want to buy the condo across the way and rent it out. I can't do that, not legally. I mean, I think you can get special permission, but it's like you have to know someone, right? So that's one thing.
Right.
But the other thing is, rent control is very, very strict here. It's very strong. So literally, there's this government official. It's like kind of like a reference mortgage rate, and when that goes up, basically they can only raise your rent other than inflation, right? When that goes up. But here's the thing: if it goes down, as it has gone down this year, you have the legal right to a rent reduction. Like they can't reject you. If they reject you, you can go to your city and complain and start a legal procedure against them. And so here's what happened. So I got an inheritance, right? I'm an honest guy. I was looking at my inheritance. I'm like, I could buy a place here. I could even buy this place if I wanted. But number one, there's rent control here. And what I'm paying is not that bad. Number two, now I'm an accredited investor. if I buy a place, there's a very good chance I will have to lose my status as an accredited investor. I want to be able to buy private companies if I can. Now, my thesis is that I can make more for the moment in the market than with real estate. We will see if that's true. But
Right.
That's my. So that's why I said, "Am I crazy?" Maybe so. I don't know.
You don't. Nobody knows the future. You just. You might be better off. And then if you're wrong, you're wrong. You're not going to jump off a bridge. You move on. Like there's so many stocks I question. I'm like, God, why didn't I put more money into this stock and that stock? But you have to just accept it and move on with the decisions you make. Rates and so you're saying it's negative interest rates?
Hang on, you know what? So you're a numbers guy like me. So I think you're gonna love this website. There's a website called Comparis. So everything in Switzerland is CH. Why it's CH? It comes from Latin, but
yeah.
So let's
CHF?
look at Confederatio Helvetica. There you go. For my citizenship exam. So let's look at the mortgage rates. Is this the yes? You're gonna probably have a double take. Look at this. Look at the rates. Go down to the current mortgage interest rates.
On this page?
The one I just sent in the link. Comparis. So this is the website I use to get my health insurance and stuff too. Go up. You blew by it. Stop. Slow. Down. Slow. You blew by it.
I'm on top. I'm on top of page.
Go down slowly.
This right?
No, keep going. There you go. Sorry,
So
5 year. Do you see the rates right there? 5 year,
Oh,
10 year.
I'm looking for a chart. I can see. This is the current rates. Okay.
I'm not sure it's Saron. I think Saron is adjustable. But actually, here's a fun thing to talk about. Have you heard that the 30-year fixed is really an American thing? I think Argentina was using it, but I don't think they even have it anymore. It's basically, if it's not only the US, it's very few countries have it. It's basically just an American thing. Most countries are less. So I think Switzerland, the longest is 10 years fixed.
Yeah, because most countries don't give debt out for 50 years like we do. We like to extend debt for as long as we want. But most countries probably, if you can't pay it off in 10 years, they're not going to give you the loan.
Yeah.
So here's the rates since 2009. And I guess, I don't know what the difference is. Oh, the policy rate, consumer price index. Okay, I see. So the rates in 2009 were 3%, and they were negative. Yeah, they were negative from 2012 to 2021.
Oh, you're looking at the Swiss. That's the Swiss national rate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I just sent you the same thing. Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's not as simple as maybe in Japan. It is as simple as, okay, when it's negative, you pay the bank. So the bank has to pay. That does not mean you have to pay the bank. It's up to the bank. The bank can eat the cost if they're willing to.
Right.
And some do, actually. In fact, here, because they may bet, well, it's not going to last forever, or they may make enough money that they don't charge you. In fact, so I was with a bank when they went to negative interest rates. I was with a bank that was charging me. And I switched to one that was free. And so I can tell you absolutely with a fact, not all banks were charging during a negative interest rates. They were actually talking about negative interest rates again, because we actually have deflation here. It's literally like the last economic reading showed deflation.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
That's, yeah. So
what a different way of thinking.
Deflation, it would never happen in the United States. Deflation.
Never
because
say never.
well,
Never say never.
we owe so much debt. The government is in so much debt
Yes.
that the only way for them to maintain is for rates to go up. I mean, you can't devalue the dollar, because the thing with deflation is if you have a lot of debt, because think of it like if you have $100,000 mortgage and say inflation is rampant like it is in Venezuela or South Africa, if you have $100,000 mortgage with crazy inflation, then it makes it like it wipes out your debt, kind of. It makes it not as much easier to pay back. So that's why in America, I think it would. I mean, anything's possible, of course, but I'm just saying it's extremely unlikely we would have deflation, because then we would default on our debt.
Well, let me add a addition, right? Maybe you call a corollary to that. It's very unlikely the U.S. would have deflation without a depression. How about that? I'm not saying it, and probably that's not likely, because that's when people think of it, right? So
yeah, anything's possible. I'm just saying it's pretty unlikely, but it was same thing when the Great Recession happened in 2008. Who would have thought that would have occurred? It's very unlikely, but that's extreme scenarios happen when things blow up.
You know, we have a sub. So I'm a mod on Victor's Discord server, and like I said, I'm a member of his channel and stuff. We have a member who's a pretty cool guy. He calls himself the Black Swan Investor. And you know, those Black Swan events, they'll get you.
Yeah, because that's how people lose a lot of money. It's kind of like that theory, like in roulette, you put $100 on black. If you win, you get $100. If you lose, you put $200 on black, and then you keep doubling up. And that sounds like a good strategy, but in the long run, you would always bankrupt yourself. That's why in extreme scenarios, you have to like protect yourself, because extreme scenarios will happen. But did anybody? So these are the top Swiss stocks, Swiss companies in the world. Yeah. Nestle and Roche are actually almost identical in terms of market cap.
Roche, I think. I don't speak French, but I
okay, Roche. I think that makes sense.
Actually, I own 3 and 4. I own numbers 3 and 4. But
so you own Novartis and Chubb?
Well, full disclosure, Novartis does research at my institute. I haven't worked with them directly, but they gave a talk once, and that's all I will say about that.
Good companies to own, stable companies. So you could see how many Swiss companies trade, and a lot of these companies trade in the United States. Mm-hmm. There's probably hundreds of Swiss companies that trade in the United States.
Switzerland,
maybe
I
not
tell
hundreds.
People, Switzerland is kind of, in a lot of ways, certainly economics-wise, it's like a little US. Global companies here are typically just as global as the US. Actually, go back. Can you go back to that just very briefly? I want to. Oh, you were looking it up. Holcim. Holcim has. So I own their stock. Full disclosure. I have actually toured one of their facilities. They have like an open door day, as they call it here, and I was pretty impressed. I was impressed with their financials. They are actually spinning off their North American business. Did you know that? It's going to happen, I think, next month.
Wow.
Look for Amrise. A-M-R-A. Hang on a second. I would, if I were you, and actually, here's a quick tip to anyone in the chat. I'm just going to throw it in here. You guys should look up the spin-off company.
So they do trade in the United States, Holcim. They trade in pink sheets.
They do, but I would look into, well, you can also just buy the Swiss stock directly, as I've done. So I use Interactive Brokers. which makes
Okay.
sense, right? I'm an international guy. I may buy Hong Kong and stuff too, but anyway, I would suggest people look into Holcim and Amrise. That's all.
So if somebody's looking for exposure into a Swiss company or a European company, this is a good candidate. They're all strong companies, so it's not certain countries you would never see traded like a country in like Iran. You would never see an Iranian company trading in the United States.
That's a sanction. Sanctions make a difference. Yeah.
Certain countries just the risk is too high, and I'm not saying all companies in a certain country are bad. It's just the risk, the country risk, is so high. That's why they don't trade in the United States.
Yeah. Well, people talk about home country bias, right? So I kind of have two home countries. Actually, I do have two home countries. So, and I literally live. I live here. Actually, so you know how countries will withhold dividend for your taxes, right? So they do that to me too. But the difference is because I live here, I can reclaim it. I file Swiss taxes, and it basically acts as a withholding on my taxes. So.
Right. Yeah, that'll happen with if you invest in foreign stocks, they'll withhold the dividend for tax purposes. But if you get a high enough return, then it's worth it.
Actually, okay, here's another fun fact since I'm here. So the way Swiss law works, not all dividends are taxed. So basically, I think you'd have to look into it. I remember I was asking, I don't know if you have an accountant background, but Victor does, right? And so he was helping me. So Victor was helping me translate some stuff. So basically, I think if it comes out of capital reserves, like Holcim has been giving dividends not out of profits, but out of some like mergers and capital reserves. So there's no withholding, and that's for anyone. If you, Scott, buy Holcim, the Swiss stock or whatever, if you get the dividend, you will get the full dividend. For now. Now, unless they start giving it out of profits, then you would have to withhold. But yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, it's kind of like buying a muni bond. Some of them you get 100% of the interest. You don't have to pay any taxes.
Yeah.
Usually you have to live in the state that you buy it, but yeah, there's Garmin, if you GPS.
Oh, I didn't know. I actually had no idea Garmin was here. But yeah, Nestle is here, Roche, Novartis. By the way, fun fact about Novartis. Yes, it's a Swiss company, but the CEO is American. And they have just been doing some, they actually are putting billions, I think, with a B, into manufacturing plants in the US. And we discussed this on Victor's channel. It's not just for them to get around tariffs, but then they can contract out manufacturing, right? They can say, hey, Roche, hey, whatever, right? Hey, and Novo Nordisk, would you like us to manufacture your drugs for you? We have the facilities, they're ready. We got assembly lines and everything we need, just give us the word.
Yeah, that'll make people want to invest in a company if they're building manufacturing facilities in the U.S.
Actually, let me see.
And it also makes it easier because if half your sales are in the U.S., then it's expensive to have to always ship products from Europe to the U.S. But if you have manufacturing already in the U.S., that saves on shipping.
Yeah. Well, I think the fact that they have a American CEO is helping them a lot in there. He knows what's up, let's say. So.
Right.
Anyway, you know what? Thank you so much. It's been nice chatting with you, Scott. I feel I've monopolized your stream long enough. Probably.
Yeah, no problem.
But
Yeah, thanks for joining.
You're welcome.
And I hope people learn something new about the Swiss market.
I
Um,
hope that too. By the way, my name's Scott too. So, cheers,
ah,
Scott. It's a
now
good name.
I won't forget. Okay, thanks a lot for joining.
All
Talk
right,
to you
take it
later.
easy, man. Ciao.
Okay,
Bye.
bye. So I hope you guys learned something new. It's that's why I like some meeting people from other countries and cultures, because it kind of forces me to like learn about. Because if I meet, like, especially if you're single and you meet like a girl from another country, like you kind of want to know and you want to impress them. Um, but it's a good way to learn something new. Because I knew Nestle was in Switzerland. Roche, I didn't. I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have thought that. But not now. Like, just talking to Shadow Guy, that connection. Novartis, I knew Novartis well as a company, but I didn't realize they were in Switzerland. I might have guessed it, but I don't know if I would have thought that. Chubb also, I don't know if I knew they were in Switzerland. Um, but a lot of companies, they sell products in the United States. Most companies sell products in the United States. These are companies that are based, like their home base is in Switzerland. But I mean, every company is American in a sense, because sales, we do a lot of sales in America. Some companies, most of their sales are in America, even if their home base is another country. But Schindler, I know they're really big on elevators and escalators. They're a Swiss company, the Schindler Group. I always noticed that if you ever been on an escalator, sometimes you see a little logo, Schindler. But yeah, let me know. It's a Saturday. I don't know. Is there any other good tickers out there? Because I know, like, investing in other countries, it's nice to diversify, but what I've noticed is just most countries do not outperform the United States. Pretty much like the US performs better as a country than pretty much any other country. Of course, in a short time frame, in a 1 year time frame, there's some countries may double in value, but over 10, 20, 30, 40 years, the US outperforms pretty much everybody. There's so much money in the United States. There's so many but yeah, so we started off with looking at the top, the highest net worth people. So is there any stock market news? What do you guys think? Dex, what's going on? It's just crazy having negative interest rates, because when you put money into a bank, you would expect them to give you money. Sometimes not a lot of money. So say you added $10,000 to you brought it to a bank and you put $10,000 into a savings account, right? And if you were in Switzerland, a lot of banks would just take money from you. They wouldn't even give you money. It's the opposite. I'm talking 2-3 years ago, they would have taken money out. So if you look in your account after a year, you have less money, assuming you didn't add or take money away. So you just put it in that savings account and didn't touch it for a year. You'd have less money because of negative interest rates. This is, Bank One. I'm talking about negative interest rate environments. So this is an option. if you put your money into Bank One, so in 2025, you have 10,000, and then a year later you have 9,990. Maybe in Bank Two, you would still have 10,000, but they would hit you for a fee. So they would charge you a fee. So you have to pay them up. What is $10? So they may charge you $10. So they might not take it out of your account, but they would send you a bill for $10, and then you'd have to pay it. So you go, oh, what's this for? That's the privilege of you putting money into our bank. Because you're putting money into our bank, we're charging you $10. And then you're like, why are you charging us $10? Because we're protecting your money. Because you can't leave 10,000 in your home, because you might get robbed, or you may spend it, or someone in your family may take it and spend it. So we're holding the money for you to keep it safe, and then we're only charging you a fee of $10. I'm talking about in 2009, this happened, 2011, 2015, it was 2016, that was the worst. But now it's positive. Now, if you put money into a Swiss bank, they may give you a 1% interest rate. So you get that you would make $100. It's interesting, right? Because why would you give money to a bank for them to take more money from you? Just keep it in your house, right? You don't have to worry about it. But of course, there's a risk. You could get robbed. Stock market news. Is there any other news? Trying to do more live streaming, get more interest. The Dow fell 700 points on Friday. I didn't realize it fell that much. You would think I would know that, but I didn't realize it fell as much as it did. With the conflict between Iran and Israel, will ET go to the moon? It's a good question. Will ET go to the moon? Let's update this chart. There's probably a fast way to update it. 196. Amazon. 212. I don't know about ET going to the moon. Why do you say that? Why would ET benefit? I mean, ET pretty much just moves oil and gas. They don't actually produce any of it. Like a Chevron, they're part of the upstream process, so they actually pull it from the ground. They actually do everything, but they're upstream. It's what's it called? They didn't move. Yeah, it's a midstream company, so I don't think rates are not as they're not as affected by rates as an upstream company. 475. Yeah, Microsoft is trading at its all-time high. I could probably do an API. It's much faster. I'm like wasting all this time manually putting it in here like an idiot. NVIDIA 142. That hasn't moved since I last looked at this chart. SLV. But in the short term, those stocks could move when there's a disruption in the oil market because of the correlation. Tesla really came up the past. So you can see there's a formula on the bottom here, and it calculates. There's some automation on the spreadsheet, so it calculates what's done the worst on this list. So Apple is down 24% for the year. Can you believe Apple, how bad they're doing? It's mainly tariffs, right? That's the reason. Tesla goes up big. Yeah, it's very volatile. CVS is up the most. Oh, gold is right here. Okay, this is sorted alphabetical. That's why. So CVS. Microsoft. It's up like 225% since I bought it. And when I bought it, 3 months later, I was down almost 50%. And so I'm up 225% from when I bought it. Imagine I'd be up 500% if I bought more. Of course, if I knew that, I would have dumped all my money into it. I was thinking if say everything you know today, right? And if you go back to when you're like the year 2000, I don't know how old you are. If you're 20 years old, then it doesn't make sense. But assuming you're at least 35, so say you can go back to the year 2000 and you know exactly what you know today, right? Would you be a trillionaire? Like, I know I definitely could be a billionaire, 100%, if I knew exactly what I know. But could you be a trillionaire? And the only reason I don't know, mathematically, you could be, because I know, like you know what the future is going to be. So if you went back to the year 2000 and say you're 18 years old, you could put, like, I'll give you an example. How much was Bitcoin in 2000? See, it always says 0, which makes it hard to do these analysis because I want to know the actual number, not just 0. Let's see what this website says. Bitcoin. Okay, Bitcoin price history. Okay, so if I go back, say you go back to January 1st, 2000. Okay, January 1st, 2005. I can't even It doesn't even go back that far. It's hard to even do this. Bitcoin started in 2008, 2009. Okay, so that I thought it was around, but whatever. It wasn't around at all in 2000. What was Bitcoin worth in 2010? Okay, okay. If you put Amazon price in 2000. The problem is, like, you can't, in order to maximize your money, in order to like make billions, you can't invest in like say we know Amazon is 78 cents. Like, we can't put all our money in Amazon and wait 25 years. You have to like invest it and then make like a massive return that year, and then take that money and invest it and make a massive return the following year, and just in order to grow it. Because I mean, sure, it'd be great if you put $100,000 into Amazon in the year 2000 and had $200 million today. But I want to think: is it possible for you to make enough money to be a trillionaire? So Nvidia price in 2000. I can't tell if it's okay. So 13 cents in 2000. Even that wouldn't be good enough. And now what is it? It's 142. Oh man. You need the money. You can't put $1 million into a stock in 2000 if you don't have it, if you're only like 15 years old. So say you were able to scrounge up $50,000. Say you are like 16, 17 years old. You somehow got 50,000. Maybe you got credit card debt, or you borrowed from a lot of different people, 1,000 from a lot of different people. So you can buy 385,000 shares of Nvidia in the year 2000. And then now it's 142. So how much? So you have $55 million, which of course, is great, but that's not even close to being a trillionaire. If I went back 2000, I would buy a camera, a Camaro, a Camaro, because you have to find. So knowing what you know now, I guess you need to take some information with you, because stock increase. I think I made a video on this in 2000. Okay, so here's how you do it. Okay, Laboratory Corp went up 377% in 2000. So ticker LH. Okay, increase. So it went up 377% in 2000. Okay. And let's be realistic. If you're like 15, 16, 17, you probably can't come up with a 50 to $100,000. Say you can say $20,000. Say you start with 20,000. You open a brokerage account. You might have to get your parents to help you because it's hard. There's no websites really. And LH is going to go up 377%. So it's what, 1 plus. Okay, so here's year one. Obviously, you wouldn't remember this anyway. You have to actually copy it down before you went back in your time machine. So in year one, I guess you could start a fund and then get investors. That's one way to become a trillionaire. So LH went up. So you turn 20,000 into 95,000. So in year two, 2001, this Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory 307%. %. And you'd always start with what you ended with the prior year. So in 2001, you'd have $388,000. So that's year two. And in 2002, see, like this company, it went up 89,000%. Houston American Energy in 2002. Can't even, so in 2002, you see this company. Let's change the range. 1, 1. It looks like it went down in 2002. The reason it says it went up 89,000%, I think this is a calculation. I think there was like a stock split. So it's just taking it goes to some source. I don't know what source, maybe Yahoo Finance, a source with all the stock prices. And it takes the stock price on January 1st, 2002, and takes stock price on December 31st, 2002, and then it calculates. There must have been a stock split, a reverse stock split, when this came out. Okay. HUSA stock split. So what? I mean, what's something like that, like Houston American Energy? It looks like it actually started trading. It looks like it started trading in 2002. So like the source it's pulling from, it probably was like a penny or like almost zero in 2001. It didn't go up this much. That's what I'm trying to say. Medifast. This is 2002. So in 2002, Medifast. See, it's not that easy. I mean, you can I don't know. Well, the Mike Tyson fight when he fought Buster Douglas, like you could put all $100,000 on Buster Douglas, and that was like a 6-to-1, I think, something like that. So you can do anything like that you want. Okay, so this did go up a lot. It went from 22 cents to almost $6. So this did move. So this is correct. 2,300%. And you have $388,000 in the market cap, but that's the problem here. The market cap today, the market cap is 136 million. So you couldn't put all your money into it. Maybe you could. Say you did put $388,000 and you got a 2,300% return. You'd have 9 million. I don't know. I think back then, well, maybe the market cap was, maybe it was like, because it's $5 and now it's maybe 1/3. So it was like 40 million market cap. What I'm saying is you can't make more than the company's worth. So let's just say this worked. You were able to make a 2,300% return, $388,000. So now 2003. Okay, this BCLI went up 4,600%. That's like the Tyson fight, 46x. Is it? But the market cap is $9 million. That's today the market cap. I don't know what it was in 2003. Actually, I think it was higher in 2003. It pretty much IPO'd in 2003. That's why it went up. Look how much it went up. It went up to over 700 by 2005. So this went up 4,600%. So let's do that 4,600%. BCLI. And let's pretend you put all your money into BCLI. How much? You put 9.4 million into BCI. Then you have $441 million. Which is, the market cap is 9 million. Maybe back then, I think it was actually higher back then. Maybe it was 50 million back then. So you just couldn't do it. With this company, you can't, because if you put $9 million into that company, it wouldn't have gone up 4,600%. nobody else, you would move the market too much. That's why Buffett says he can make a 50% return on $1 million each year. But once he hit like $10 billion, he can't buy more than 100% of a company. So if there's a company he knows, or he pretty much knows is going to like double in this year, or it looks like they're going to double, he could put $5 million and double his money. But if the market cap is 50 million, he can't put $1 billion into the company if it's only worth 50 million. So maybe not. Maybe I couldn't be a trillionaire. But I'm pretty sure I could be a billionaire, because you don't have to buy these, you can just try to find stocks that go up like 2-3x. And even if you could just triple your money each year, let's just say you can triple it, which I think is doable if you're psychic. And you started with 20,000. So I'm not triple, it goes 300%, which is like a 4x return. So I'm gonna assume a 300% return. Okay, let's get rid of the ticker because we're just gonna. So in year 3, in 2002, you can have 1.3 million. And in 2000, at the end of 2003, you have 5.1. Then you have 20 million at 2004. Let's just round this to millions. It's hard to. We'll round it to billions. So it rounds to 0, so you can't tell. So this is 21 billion. I guess it's impossible. We'll just do 100%. Let's say you could just double your money each year. Each year you can double your money. You need, because the future. Alright. Okay, that did work. From 2000 to 2000. Okay. So which I guess is possible if you know the future. So you have $200 million by 2012. You'd have, this is when you would hit $1.3 trillion. If you could double your money, 20,000, you could double it every year for 25 years. You'd have $1.3 trillion by 2025. But the thing is, once you break through like a billion, you can't, your investment would move the market so much. So even if you had a crystal ball and you knew I don't know, Bitcoin would double in 2025, you knew that. Even if you put your $600 billion into Bitcoin, it might probably more, because if one person owns half of it. So do you see what I'm saying? You know how like when people like go back to the past, like in Back to the Future, if you go back to the past, you could change the future. So that's what I'm saying. Like the future won't be the same if you have this information. So how do you this $671 billion? Say you say, just pretend you were able to double it for the first 24 years, and you did get up to 671 billion. What can you invest in 2025? I guess you could put Nvidia. I guess well, it's not up. It's not up. It didn't double, but you would need to find a stock that doubles, but it can't. It has to be so big that your investment wouldn't influence it. Does that make sense? Is anybody with me on this one, or this is the kind of stuff I think about? Let me know in the comments. If nobody's listening, I gotta sign off soon. I'm starting to get. I think you would have to put it in Bitcoin and other tokens that start at fractions of a penny. If I went back to 2000, I would buy. Well, that's the thing. If you put it into Bitcoin or whatever it is, what's it called, Dogecoin, even if you put $1 million into those things, like your investment would influence the market so much, because say the value of Bitcoin in 2008 is like 10 million. If you put $1 million into it, it would affect it a lot. It would, because the reason a lot of stocks move is when so many people go into it, because there's so many that's like if 1 million people buy a stock today. So if there's 1 million shares outstanding and there's 1 million people own one share each, there's much more potential for the stock to do well than if one person owns half the shares. And then you have 500,000 people own another half. It's I don't know. Maybe this is not a fun topic to talk about. Any other topics before I sign off? You ever notice, like, always the richest people in the world, it's really the Walton family, the family that owns Walmart, because they're on the list so many times. Even now, Musk is 400 billion, the richest man in the world. But if you look, it's always like this. The Walton family is, you have the Rob Walton family, that's 112 billion. Jim Walton and family, 111 billion. Alice Walton, 103 billion. So it's really, if you add those people up, it's really one company, Walmart. It was always like that. Every time you see the richest people, you would see like the 4 Walmart people. It used to be 4. I don't know why it's 3 now. They would all be in the top 10, but like in the bottom half of the top 10. But if you added all them up, it would they'd be the richest. So the 410 billion, they're pretty close. They're 330 billion. Okay, I'll sign off. I haven't heard from anybody. I'm starting to. I think I lost interest. Today, biggest. Okay, stock market news. What did someone say? Israel and Iran, will the attacks on that? Israel, Iran affect the market? It's not like it was in the 90s, though. In the 90s, when a country in the Middle East, when there was tension with the U.S. with a country in the Middle East, that would really affect oil prices. But now we're the biggest producers of oil in the world. We used to not produce much oil, but now with alternatives like fracking, we're much less reliant. So oil prices jump 7%, and stocks drop as Israel-Iran tensions escalate. Oil will be affected, but it's not like it used to be. That's all I'm saying. We were very reliant on the Middle East for oil. Oil prices surge. That would be crazy to have missiles coming down in your city. I know. It would be nuts. And it's like that though. In those countries, it happens a lot. It's not unheard of. If it happened in the United States, it would be crazy, because remember when the World Trade Center got hit, and it was massive news. I mean, it shocked the country. It would be similar to that happening. It's crazy to just even think about that. I mean, it's sad, but the market's resilient. There's always these shocks to the market, and it goes up or down from a shock. But what drives prices is the value of these companies, and then in long term, that's what the market will always resort back to, what the value of the companies are, not the news in the market. But if you want to be a trader, these news stories really help. But who knows? Like most traders lose money though, so I wouldn't. The economic risk of Israel's Iran attack. Israel strikes against Iranian military leadership and nuclear facilities. Bigger picture, it comes. S&P 500 was down. Gold. So gold could be a good hedge. That's what they always say, but sometimes gold moves with the market. There's a lot of times I've seen gold not even. Okay. It has reached an all-time high. Gold is over $3,000 an ounce for the first time. But you can see how low it was in 2004. Even in the Great Recession, 2008, it went down. You would think gold would go up. It went from 90 to like 70. So it kind of moves with the market in a sense. And it didn't really do anything for about a decade, from 2012 to 2022. It didn't move. It just came down and back up. It had a really big jump the past couple of years, but the market has jumped a lot in the past couple of years. It's not like the stock market has went down and gold went up. So you can see how it moves with the market. Okay, I guess I'll sign off. I'll check back in tomorrow. Try to do more live streams. I think it's good for the channel. Thanks for it was a long one. Thanks for watching. Thanks, Shadow Guy, for joining. I'll talk to you soon.